Once upon a time, I had a teacher named Mrs. SZRussell, and yes, SZRussell truly was her name. And this is the story of the art lesson she gave me many years ago, and the long-term effect it had on my artistic brain. And this butterfly, it's not random. I promise it will make sense by the end of this story. Mrs. SZRussell, old and worn, her mask of patience wearing thin, went from desk to desk that day, placing upon each waxy finger-painting paper a mound of sunny lemon yellow or a blob of dark whole gray. I don't know, but maybe there was a shortage of paint that day, 'cause one student got the yellow paint and the next got the gray. Yellow, gray, yellow, gray, yellow, gray. I prayed to God for the yellow when my turn came near, but when Mrs. SZRussell stopped at me and I saw it was not, I summoned up from the bottom of my most timid heart my biggest bravery ever to date, and I begged, if it could only be, the happy, warm, lemony, summery, sunshine, bright canary, school bus yellow, please, please. Time stood still as Mrs. SZRussell, ever so wishing to flee the classroom and be retired, stopped abruptly and stared at me disgustedly for what felt like an eternity, then finally said quite meanly, "What makes you think you're so special in this world?" She then scooped up a big blob of gray whole darkness and plopped it down in front of me, moving on to the next smiling child, who received a mound of golden, joyful, shimmering bliss, which I ever so envied. So sadly to say, for the rest of that school year, I never spoke or messed with Mrs. SZRussell again. But I'm all grown up now, and Mrs. SZRussell, bless her soul, is now long gone from her space in this world. So I'd like to say today, Mrs. SZRussell, I forgive you, and thank you too, for giving me my first rude lesson in contrasts. Therefore, in honor of you today, I have chosen both the gray and the yellow colored paint. So that was a quick and jazzy overview of the art created by me and my artist friend Katherine, who agreed to contribute artwork to this episode using what she now refers to as the SZRussell colors. I usually go all out with color, so using the limited color palette of yellow and gray was an interesting challenge, because instead of relying on more color for interest, it pushed us to focus on things like contrast, values, and composition. I also think fewer colors can be less distracting to the mood or message of the piece. I should add that we also use the metallic colors of gold and silver, as they are essentially tones of yellow and gray. Since Katherine and I are mixed media artists, we use a variety of techniques to create our art, which I'll share as I go through each piece we created for this project. To begin, this first piece was actually created a few years ago using a traditional marbling technique. I played around with marbling for a while, but it's a pretty involved process, so I didn't continue on with it. Looking at it now, I realize I can probably recreate some of these same effects using a jelly plate, which would be much easier. I'm going to play around with that at a future date. This next piece was also made using the marbled paper that I used to create this abstract sunflower collage image just a few days ago. While I was working, a little poem kept swirling around in my head, and I thought about adding these words directly onto the artwork, but words are commitment, and I didn't want to glue something down and regret it later. So instead, I decided to let the poem become the title of the piece. Beyond all light and shadow, the trembling lies and trivialities, the truth stands witness in a sunflower poised to bloom. Anyway, these words have meaning to me, but I'll let you translate them however you wish. The title of this small artwork, 6 by 8 inch, is French Lemons. Citron is French for lemon, and this piece has a moody, atmospheric feel to me, like being in an old French kitchen, the soft light coming through the window and the lemons on the table. The checkered tablecloth was made from tissue paper I created on the jelly plate. I'll quickly show you this technique because it's a fun and easy one. Using the gel plate, I mix 2 shades of yellow and a bit of white and roll the paint on using a brayer or roller. I've already made a dark gray gel print and let it dry. Then I use this cake decorating tool, which I usually pass up and down first, and then side to side, and then one more time up and down. After that, I pull the print. This next piece I called Himalayan Snowflowers. I'm not even sure if that's a real thing, but this piece was inspired by a YouTube channel I love called Itchy Boots, about a woman who rides her motorcycle around the world. At one point, she rode through the Himalayas. I had made some collage papers and was loosely layering them onto a background when the shapes of mountains suddenly appeared. I remember thinking, there they are, the Himalayas. Then came the flowers and the title. And finally, this last piece is called Steampunk Salvage Yard. This one was created very loosely, using hand-painted collage papers, which I outlined with Posca pens to add dimension, and finished with a wash of metallic gold. It's not my usual style, but it was a fun experiment, and I learned a lot from making it. Now on to Catherine's art. This was Catherine's first experiment using the Messerol paint palette. She began collaging the background with a layer of printed tissue paper and then some other images on top. She then applied a couple of thin acrylic coats in a yellow ochre shade, nothing more. The inks in the copy paper magically created the blue-green areas, coloring in the white spaces more effectively than it could have been achieved with paint alone. Catherine recreated this pattern inspired by a bamboo print from an old t-shirt and colored it in using Messerol paint colors. Green gel press leaves were added as a final collage layer. She later asked me if it was okay that she had used the green. I didn't want to be a stickler about it, so I said, why not? It's art, and Mrs. Messerol isn't here to supervise. Or is she? Sorry, I've always wanted to use that spooky sound effect. This is a loose watercolor rendering of the same bamboo graphic again, inspired by the old t-shirt, and painted with Messerol colors. This next work is primarily a gel press print using Messerol paint colors. Catherine's only alteration was extending a single white line originally created accidentally by a strand of Catherine's hair. I think I'm going to try this technique, but I think I'm going to use sewing thread instead. And I see she added a little bit of green too, but that's okay. I think this final piece might have blown Mrs. Messerol's mind. The Great Unraveling is Catherine's work, which I think qualifies as a piece of artivism. Artivism being the use of art as a form of activism that blends creativity and expression to inspire awareness, dialogue, and social or environmental change. The central goddess figure represents Mother Nature. The title, The Great Unraveling, refers to a moment in which the consequences of human actions place the environmental and social systems that support support life at risk. Now, as promised at the start of this episode, I will explain the butterfly. For me, the butterfly represents a metamorphosis, not only my change of heart toward the past and my first awkward art lesson, but also the transformation that unfolded through the art created around the story. And in the end, through the magic of paper and paint, I brought Mrs. Messerol back to life again, not just as I remembered her, but as I see her now, as a figure reshaped by memory, understanding, and a newfound appreciation.